we're continuing on our topic of how to effectively see people healed. We know about what it says to be healed, but effectively, Henry Wright did a talk, and he found that maybe only 5% of people were actually healed in the church that believed in healing. And so what can we do to improve that? And part of it is understanding what's happening in the process. And I'm having problems. Here we are. So don't look at the fruit. Okay, many people, they just pray for the fruit and they forget there are root causes, and they're not successful because they haven't actually dealt with the real issues of sickness and disease, as the Bible is talking about. And so, first of all, we talked about effective prayer and what can we do. Okay, don't pray around the world. Don't pray general prayers as please God heal. We should be short command. Jesus was always short in his prayers, and he says, take authority. And so we're going to do that. Then do check up, and if necessary, pray again. What and how you think is important. So we've been talking about fear, and Satan wants to control us. For he, as he thinks in his heart, so is he. So our thoughts can control our biochemistry, and we looked at cortisol and the cortisol drip. And fear is one of the most common ways Satan can control our thoughts and therefore can control our physical bodies. So fear is a major factor in disease. And so I've got some diseases there, and the root cause. And what we've got to deal with is actually the fear to see more healing. Well, what does the Bible say about fear? We're just continuing on from last week. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. If God didn't give fear, then where does fear come from? And we know that answer is Satan. Well, we don't let the roots grow. We're going to continue on that this week and next week. The cortisol drip, okay? We believe in, God designed cortisol for fight or flight. But if we, in this constant stage of stress and anxiety, the cortisol keeps dripping. The tap doesn't turn off. So unable to resolve fear, anxiety, stress over the long term, especially in relationship breakdowns. And that's where we left it last week. Now, I want to look tonight at the spirit of fear first of all. And there's this rejection I put there. And you might think, oh, compared to some of those others, that's small. But you've got to look at the pathway of how Satan is getting control of our mind. And this rejection is one of them. Now, what I want to point out, in the spirit of heaviness, depression, hopelessness, shame, again, rejection is in our list. And it's not coincidental that these two are often together. And we're going to look at that tonight. So John Bevere wrote a book called Beta Satan. And what he was saying is, for offenses must come. That says, Jesus said in Matthew, offenses must come. Satan was going to bring offense. And it's not the offense, but our reaction to the offense that's actually the important thing. Now, some of the things that might lead to depression and other things: death of a loved one, loss of employment, marriage or relationship ending, financial obligation, traumatic event, natural disaster, car accident, a theft or violence. And so all these things, but it's our reaction. But Satan wants to control our thinking and our mind. And Jesus said, offenses must come. So it's how we deal with them. What then is depression? Okay. And so I've identified 4 types of depression, but depression is this continual sadness. Okay. Not being able to move forward, the continual thinking of sadness. And so I've listed depression, but some people then have depression and addictive behavior. Some people have depression and self-harm, and some people have bipolar, which is manic depression, or manic and then going into depression. So It could just be simple depression. Now, addictive behaviors I've seen, and the first depression woman that we prayed for was addicted to relationships. And she thought if she was in a relationship that she'd be okay. But, you know, guys just didn't want that. They wanted sex. And so she ended up just having to have sex with all these guys. But she was addicted to it. And at one point, she was actually dating 3 guys at one time on these WhatsApp things. And she came and she showed us, you know, we were just doing what we're doing. But we broke both the addictive behavior and the depression, or God did, okay? But we found out the answer was she was looking for love. Depression and self-harm, and that might be cutting yourself, or it might be suicide, are there, that we've got to deal with that differently to addictive behavior. And then bipolar. Well, what are the natural causes of depression? Depression is an underproduction of serotonin. Serotonin is called the feel-good chemical and is produced by the pineal gland. Now, everything we talked about before was controlled by your thoughts. And the gland next to you, and I've forgotten it now, then sends the messages out to all the other ones. And so your thoughts of fear are causing the serotonin to shut down. Bipolar is a bit different. It's a genetic underproduction of serotonin caused by a mutation on the 27th lower right chromosome. So that's the natural. But what are we going to look at the spiritual, you know, the spiritual causes of depression, what we're going to pray into. So depression is usually caused by fear, anxiety, stress because of rejection, especially broken relationships. And so we've got to pray into that. We'll talk about that in a second. Bipolar is an effect of generational influence. So we've got to pray creative miracles to change the genes and the chromosome. So we talked about rejection and this power of rejection and offense. Now, as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Rejection can control your mind. And if it's a relationship that's failed, or, you know, being fired from a job, or even so many other things, the rejection controls your body chemistry. And usually the closer you are to that person, the more power the rejection has over you. So, you know, a child and a parent is powerful, but a stranger may not be as powerful. So the closeness of the human connection also has an influence on the power of the rejection. So when dealing with these things, so with depression, we've looked at it comes from rejection in both heaviness and fear. When we're dealing with addictive behaviors on depression, we've got to look at the spirit of bondage. When depression with self-harm, we're looking at also spirit of death or spirit of lying. You know, the lying spirit says, no one will ever miss you. I've heard that line so many times with people that are self-harming. And the last one is generational influence. Well, praying for depression and bipolar. So I'm just going to start this. We're going to continue next week. The Bible says, for love, such love, okay, the King James says perfect love. Such love has no fear, because perfect love expels, King James says, casts out all fear. So perfect love casts out all fear. If we are afraid, it is for fear of punishment. And this shows we've not been fully experiencing his perfect love. And so this is what I found. People are wanting love, but they might even put up barriers themselves. We call that, what do we call that?
Putting up walls.
Oh, an unloving spirit. An unloving spirit, it's not that you're not loved, it's you put up walls so you don't allow love through. And so this is the antidote. God didn't give us a spirit of fear. He gave us power, love, and a sound mind. So if we want a sound mind, we've got to work on the power of God for healing, and the love, and the perfect love casts out fear. So we'll continue with that next week. Now,